Hey y'all, so today's video is going to be about something that I see often and frankly experienced myself as well. And that is so you get to the end of your degree plan or whatever you've done to train yourself to work in the game design field, 3D animation, whatever it might be. You start sending out your applications, resumes, going to events, South by Southwest, GDC, etc., and you're just not getting into that game company that you want to be at. So it could be that you're having a hard time getting into the games industry. It could be that your priorities have shifted as you've gotten through your education and you don't really feel like that's where you fit anymore. It could just be your interests have changed as well. So, how do you take this skill set that you've now created, whether it be 3D modeling, rigging, animating, texturing, C sharp, Python, whatever it could be, that's all relevant to games and animation, and pivot and use that outside of those fields? So this is something that I see often enough that I actually created an entire class at UT Dallas where I teach sometimes as an adjunct professor, specifically talking about how to take your creative disciplines that you've worked on and migrate those into industrial and business settings. So some of what you see in the background here are some of what my students came up with. So in the bottom right here, like medical rendering of hands. So this was someone who was really into 2D illustration and was interested in moving into medical fields. Top right was more sports and marketing. So this student created videos around advertisements for different esports teams. Top left was a UI UX student who wanted to create an application for mobile devices for library book checkout. And then bottom left was a 3D modeling student who was working through how to design a retail store to allow for the most throughput of customers. So all of these are kind of ideas to start working your brain around how are these disciplines relevant to other fields. One of the most important things that you need to think through is where your intersection lies. And we'll look at what that intersection is kind of physically on the next slide. But on this slide, just want to lay out a few options. So you have industry sectors, and all of these are not everything that there could be. I'm just listing things that I've seen often or that I've experienced. So within industry sectors, you have verticals like automotive and aerospace, where I tend to live, retail, medical, architecture, defense and government, or energy, oil and gas, things like that. You have use cases, which you need to think about what types of use cases do you find interesting. So you have product configurators like sales, marketing, online configurators to purchase a product. You have overall marketing content, whether that be advertisements or a quick AR image that you can scan a QR code and interact with this marketing content for the Dallas Mavericks. Who knows? You have simulation. So that's an area that I also come from, being VR flight simulators and things like that in the aerospace industry. Training. So there are companies out there doing really cool things like Axon is doing firearms and training for police officers around how to engage with other individuals. You also have training that we'll look at in a bit here in the medical industry to train surgeons on how to work in an operating room. HMI, or human machine interaction. This is like dashboards, displays, ways that humans will interact with larger industrial items. So that could be a car, it could be a plane, a boat, could be a tractor, who knows? But the idea is that it's some way of you interacting through screens or user interfaces. Digital twins, so overall, kind of if you have a manufacturing floor and you have 10,000 sensors across your manufacturing line, if one of those sensors triggers, hey, this unit has a fault or there's an error, some way of visualizing that so that you can contextualize where that error has occurred and very quickly get out and fix it. That's what digital twins comes back to a lot of times, is visibility and context. Then you have visualization, which is just kind of a catch-all for how to use 2D and 3D visualization for higher levels of fidelity and better understanding. When I worked at Bell Helicopter, using 3D renders for new aircraft designs was a really engaging way to quickly allow for people to walk around those inside of a Unity scene and a headset. Or if you're training someone on how to maintain a Bell 429, we would often use visualization, 3D scenes and renders and real-time 3D to facilitate that training. Then you have animation gaming disciplines. So things like project management, creative direction, all your 3D art disciplines, which is kind of where I live. Design disciplines, whether that be graphics, concept, UI, UX, industrial design, etc. Programming and interactives, and analytics and data. And then lastly, you need to think about what medium do you want to work within. So here's a list of different media that you can kind of look at. You have web, desktop, VR, AR, mobile, even print. All of it's relevant, and all of it you could be using your skills to work in. So what I typically do with my class here is have them go through and mark an intersection that they care about that aligns with their creative disciplines and the verticals that they align with the most. Again, this is not all encompassing, so if you want to do this exercise yourself, the idea here is really just that you have your name on at least 2 intersections. So if I were doing this for myself, I might do 3D art and automotive and aerospace, and I might do design and technology or something like that. So what exactly do each of these things mean? I won't show you all a video for all of these, but just to talk through it very briefly, inside of the automotive industry or aerospace industry, you see a lot of really good hard-edged modeling and some organic shapes within automotive, kind of leaning into these nice, sleek, sexy, lit scenes that you can bring these vehicles into. You also have a lot of the HMI, so the dash displays, things like that. You have design collaboration, so that would be if you're working in the VR field and you want to align people across the globe on a new design for a new cockpit, etc., as well as manufacturing. Some of the companies that I have at the bottom here, I do specifically because I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and these are all companies that either have headquarters or large establishments here within probably a 10 to 20 mile radius of the universities that I tend to teach at in this area. So companies like Toyota North America, Peterbilt, Interstate Batteries, American Airlines, etc., are all relevant companies to be looking at with these skills in this area. If you're in a different area geographically, I encourage you to do the same. Just start typing in what companies in these verticals live within these cities that I want to be in or currently reside in. Figure it out that way. Within architecture, you have a lot more, I would say, augmented reality and kind of large scale Revit model visualization. This is where tools like Unity's Pixies come into play a lot, is pulling in this architectural BIM data. It also comes into play with automotive, any type of data ingestion from CATIA, SolidWorks, etc., out into what you're more accustomed to, like an FBX, an OBJ, a USD, etc. In all of these areas, being able to visualize something well adds a lot of contextual meaning, it adds a lot of value. So if you're saving money, time, or lives, people want to pay for those jobs. And that's all things that you can do. Within manufacturing, you're going to see more still visualization, but more, I would say, programmatically aligned roles and openings. So if you have interest in or a background in IoT sensor data and the ability to aggregate data into a singular visual for things like digital twins, this would be an area to look at. So you have Lennox, International, Texas Instruments, etc. Within technology, right here you have AT&T and Samsung. This is a really good field for if you're 3D modeling, texturing, lighting, etc. Doing things like very quick product turnarounds and renders can very quickly get you portfolio pieces that are as attractive to the industrial like technology space as it is to a game studio if you want to continue to apply in that field. Within retail, similarly, I've found that retail is a great area for any type of visualization, 3D renders, visual effects. If you're into Houdini, creating a few visual pieces in a demo reel around some visual effects, some lit edges. Here you have some sand. I'm sure that was something like a Houdini simulating all of these particles, etc. There's a lot of really cool low-hanging fruit that you can jump out and grab here and get some high-level portfolio pieces. Right here in DFW in retail, we have Cinemark, Neiman Marcus, PepsiCo, R&D Labs is here. In the medical space, so Kaiser Permanente, Baylor Scott & White are here in DFW. This one example is a company that uses Unity called Oso VR. This is a public video that they have online. So this is training. I won't show too much of the video just to ensure it's not too graphic for anybody. But this is just a public video that you can get out there and search around how to train surgeons, doctors, nurses, etc., any personnel that's going to be in an operating room on how to interact with different tools, with different types of patients, etc. So if you're interested in VR, AR, visualization, training, modeling, all of these disciplines again feed into this vertical as well. Government and defense is a great one because, frankly, there are almost always openings in the defense sector. So here is just a quick 3D animation for a company doing different defense work. In this case, it's Textron Systems. I will very briefly escape out of this presentation and just show if you're looking for jobs like Lockheed Martin and Bell Helicopter are both right here in DFW. So if I go to Lockheed Martin and I say jobs, and you're saying, hey, this is all great, but I still don't know how to start Googling. Literally, I'm Googling Lockheed Martin jobs, coming down here and saying search by experience level. Okay, so let's say I'm a student. Student and early career, I think is what we're looking for. And then I can come down here and let's say I'm about to graduate. I don't really want an internship or an apprenticeship. I'd like an entry level opportunity. Great, let's view openings. So now we're going to load up into entry level opportunities for students coming out into the field. And in my keyword search, let's say, hey, I really like virtual reality, and it's something I have a lot of interest in, and I have a lot of portfolio pieces that back it up. I type in virtual reality, and all of a sudden we see 27 different listings. So now let's say here, I want to say, hey, I only want to stay within the DFW area because that's where I live. Now from these 27 results, we now have 15. All of these have virtual reality somewhere as a keyword within these listings, meaning my skill set within games is going to be super relevant for these openings. So that's how I would approach this, is continue going through the list, checking them off, figuring out what does and doesn't fit for you. Lastly, I would say agencies, because this is probably the top area that I would recommend getting into if you just don't know where to go next. You're not sure which of these verticals you like. You don't have enough experience with any of them that you say I really want to do that. An agency is a great option. And Sector 5 Digital, Groove Jones, Virtual Wild, the marketing arm, there are a bunch of digital agencies. And really what they do is that they service whichever target market they have, some of them being no specific target market. So this is Sector 5 Digital's public demo reel. And some examples here would be aerospace industries. So I worked with Bell while I was at Sector 5. Some racing and automotive, technology and digital transformation, sports, entertainment, the Harry Potter Wizarding World, medical, so diving through the human body, etc. There's just a ton of goodness that you can get out of working at an agency. I have found in my career for agencies to be a little bit quote unquote cutthroat, in that agencies really don't tolerate any lack of kicking butt. So if you get into an agency, you're not pulling your weight, you're typically not going to stick around there long. Agencies need to turn a profit, they need to move quick, and you're typically rotating on different projects and industries very, very fast, which to me was great because it got me a lot of experience across a lot of verticals, and I was able to build a portfolio that was compelling to a lot of different verticals, as well as build relationships with the companies that I was handing off these digital projects to, which is a lot of how my career has moved forward. So if you're still having issues with searching for the right jobs, just realize that some of the job titles in the industrial business sectors are not going to align with what they're called in the games world. So typically what I'll be looking for are titles like engineering, whether that be innovation, VR, AR, XR, solutions engineering, solutions architecture. I'm personally a solutions architect by profession. Designer, industrial design, UX design, UI design, visualization, 3D. And lastly, if you're more on the production side, the producer side, be looking for project management, program management, etc. So the one thing that I do want to say here that is critically important is that I've heard some students say, okay, well, if it doesn't work out in the games industry, I'll just kind of apply to the local Ford or the local Toyota, whatever it might be, and I'm sure I'll get in. That is not a reality. If you want to be taken seriously in any of these industries, you will be competing against other students or professionals that just spent years of their lives getting very good at that discipline in that vertical. There are universities that have full 4 year automotive industrial design degrees. So don't think that you can just fall back and that this will be your safe backup. You need to prioritize building pieces that will be relevant to these industries and getting experience in them. You're not just going to luck into it as a backup when you're being compared to other people who've had this as their option A the whole time. So you need to think about that and really start intentionally building some pieces that will be relevant. So one of the first projects that I tend to assign here is do not wait for paid work. You have some students that'll say, well, I don't have much of a portfolio because I haven't done any professional work. That's not a good excuse. If you don't have a good portfolio because you don't have enough professional work, start making up professional projects that you need to execute and deliver on, and build your portfolio and fake it until you make it. That's the only way to get there. So don't wait for paid work to build out your portfolio. You need to be building high quality work. So here are some sample projects that you could be quote unquote assigning to yourself if you just need to get a kick in the butt and move forward in a direction. So if you're interested in automotive, design me an innovative car in 2D. If you're interested in architecture, show me a render of a 3D building. If you're interested in manufacturing, hey, show me an IoT monitoring tool, maybe with a Raspberry Pi plugged into it. If you want to work in the technology sector, maybe design me a mobile landing page for a new product release. If you want to be in retail, maybe redesign my store for better traffic so that I can get more throughput. If you're into medical, render a piece of the body properly. Note that I'm using the term render there intentionally, being 2D, 3D. I don't care how you render it. Just render it out so that I can visualize something. If you're interested in government, maybe I need a 6-month production plan of a VR flight simulator. You'll notice that each of these has an intersection, right? So this would be production management, medical would be 2D illustration, retail here I had as a overall 3D design, UI, UX, etc., so on and so forth. Within each of these, you also want to have stretch goals. So if you think, okay, I did that, been there, done it, now you have optional stretch goals. So let's say in automotive 2D design, maybe now do a 3D render of a part of that car. With architectural, maybe animate your render of your 3D building. Manufacturing, hey, give me a GUI so that I can interact with those IoT devices. For technology web app design, maybe make a functional landing page for desktop. Retail, perhaps you create 3 layouts of a store with pros and cons of each. Medical, render an animation with that biological component that you've now rendered. Or government, maybe create some visuals to really sell the idea of that simulator as if you're pitching to win that job. So this is a collection of what I've anecdotally seen in the industries that I still work within today, using my games background in business settings, and I'm having a great time doing it. So I hope that this video was helpful. I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I hope y'all are having a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.